Today I'm talking about those books that everyone seems to love, but honestly, I just don't get the hype. Hi, I'm Liv. I've just started this channel, so it's all very new. But if you love books as much as I do, feel free to subscribe and join me here. So my opinions might sound a little negative here, but hey, reading is subjective, obviously, and we all have different tastes. I had high expectations, and honestly, I was pretty underwhelmed reading these books. So here are my unpopular opinions on some very popular books. The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. It's a military fantasy inspired by 20th century China. I honestly thought it would be fascinating. I was so sure that it would be a 5-star read for me that I bought the entire trilogy. I really was interested by this strong historical aspect in the trilogy, and I was very curious about the magic system, which I've heard was about shamanism. And since R.F. Kuang is so popular, well, I was really sure it would be a very, very good read for me. At first, I must say that I really loved Rin's character. She is determined to escape an arranged marriage, and I loved her ambition. Her ambition is so strong that she will do anything really to achieve her goals. She wants to get into this elite academy and she'll do really anything. And I was really rooting for her at that time. But very quickly, I had a problem with the writing style. The writing style just pushed me away from the story. I thought it was descriptive, but my problem was that it felt really cold and distant. To me, it felt more like a list of events. I'm really convinced that this impression is due to the pacing, because sometimes weeks, months, and even years pass in just one chapter, and it just broke my immersion in the story. As for the magic system, so it's based on shamanism, and it disappointed me because to me it seemed very repetitive and vague, and it's mostly visions. It felt like an endless debate whether Rin should resist the Phoenix God or not. I don't know, I wasn't invested in the magic system really. Halfway through the book, it shifts completely. We leave the academy. As soon as we leave the academy, the first characters that we liked, they just disappear, and then we meet some other new characters. And also we are thrown into this very brutal war. I like this part, but it feels like it's just that the beginning of the book felt really YA, and suddenly it feels very adult. It's very grimdark. It's full of graphic violence and war crimes inspired by real history. And then there's the famous chapter. You know, I loved this chapter because it is well written, first of all. I think it's a very important chapter because it's a testimony of what really happened. But it seemed like a totally different book. It's just not coherent. Also, I loved Rin's character at the beginning of the book, as I said, but by the end, Rin is a very, very different character. She's unrecognizable and really, honestly, she's hard to connect with. I totally understand why The Poppy War is so popular. It's not a bad book, it's not what I'm saying here. I think it is ambitious and it is important because it talks about dark historical themes. But for me, the emotional detachment that I felt and the uneven pacing, the vague magic system, it just left me disappointed. So I gave this book a 3-star. And I was disappointed because I thought it would have been a 5-star. It should have been a 5-star. It wasn't the case. The Wedding People by Alison S. Pack. So this book follows Phoebe. She arrives alone in a beautiful hotel, but she has very macabre intention. She's had a very rough time in her life recently, and she just wants to end it all. But she doesn't expect that there is a wedding taking place in this famous hotel, and she's actually the only guest that is not part of the event. But then she's gonna meet the bride and she's gonna start to talk with her and she's gonna tell her her plans, and everything's gonna change from that moment. So it's said to be also a very funny novel, like hard, introspective and funny, and it is true. There are elements that are funny in the book, but to me, The Wedding People, especially at the beginning, a very melancholic novel. It talks about heavy themes like the end of a marriage, betrayal, aging and depression, and a lot more. In this book, I really enjoyed seeing Phoebe, how she talks with people, because she doesn't have anything to lose. She's gonna be very honest with them. She can finally be free, unreserved, and she's fully herself. And this is very inspiring. And then little by little, it is gonna inspire people around her. They're gonna open up with her in very honest ways. But my reading experience was really uneven, because to me, the first part of the book felt very heavy, and even difficult to get through. Then in the middle of the book, it changes, but I really found myself a little bored, I must say. At the very end, I was kind of disappointed. I think in the middle of the book, it just drifted towards a more classic, contemporary romance, I guess. In my opinion, in the style of Emily Henry's novels, kinda. But I didn't particularly enjoy it, sadly. The book goes back and forth between different tones. So it's funny, it's heavy, it's sweet sometimes, but really for me it was just a little bit boring. So in the end, I'm not really sure what to think about this one. I really feel like I could have gotten more out of it, but I don't know, it just didn't happen for me. And I rated this book 3.25 stars. Now let's talk about another very popular book, and it is right here. So it is Circe by Madeline Miller. I felt like everybody enjoyed this book, so I picked it up myself too. I wanted to be part of this enjoyment, but yeah, it's in this list, so it just wasn't for me neither. Here we follow Circe. She grows up among the divine. She is the daughter of Helios, is the sun god, and also the daughter of the sea nymph Perse, if I pronounce it correctly. She is called a witch because she can transform things. And basically she's gonna be exiled to a remote island, and well, that's it. I just wasn't feeling invested in the story at all. The writing style felt very complex, so I read it in English. I don't know, it felt complex. I also often struggled to follow the author's, or maybe Circe's, train of thought. Sometimes I had the impression that the narrative jumped from one idea to the other without clear transitions. I don't know, it just left me feeling completely lost. Also, in my opinion, the plot was moving really too slowly. And I was really much more invested in the side stories, like the Minotaur, for instance, instead of Circe's own story. By the time she's exiled to her island, I was really bored. I was expecting more witchcraft, more magic, more something. But instead it was more about brewing potions and gathering plants, gathering herbs, wandering around the island. For me, the pacing was way too slow. That being said, the book does explore universal themes like solitude, identity, independence, but overall, to be honest, I found the plot uninteresting. And also my emotional connection with Circe was non-existent. So yeah, I DNF'd this book at 80%. I just couldn't read it anymore. I was bored. So, Circe, Madeline Miller. But I did love, and actually it was a 5-star read, The Song of Achilles. I loved this book so much, but this one, it just didn't work for me. All right, now this one, I think everybody loved this book. I haven't really seen a review where people were like, nope, bear with me, but I didn't quite like it as much as I thought I would. And this is The Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. For me, this book is very special because I liked this book until the end. I hated the ending. It was supposed to be a cozy romantic fantasy, and it turned out to be a ridiculous, grotesque mess. We follow a witch. She is a Mika Moon. She has to hide her magic like all the other witches and stay away from them so that their powers do not mingle and attract attention. But she does post witchy content on YouTube. She basically is hiding in plain sight. She is sure that no one will think that this is true, that she's a real witch. But one day someone notices her online and knows that she's a real witch. And so they're gonna contact her to become the teacher of 3 young witches. Until then, everything was fine for me in the book. The first and the second part of the book, I was even quickly drawn into the story. I loved the gentle, cozy atmosphere of the book. There are a few repetitive moments, especially with Mika. Mika has this constant feeling of being alone, unwanted, and it's also very reinforced by this guy, the love interest. I didn't like this love interest at all. He keeps reminding her how rejected she has been, but okay, it was fine, it was cozy, I enjoyed it until, first of all, the romantic connection. I didn't like it. To me, it really felt forced. He was the only one available, and the others, they were forcing the thing. I really didn't like it. Now let's talk about the most infurious thing I've ever read, which is the ending of this book. The final twist completely ruined the cozy vibe for me. Seriously, why isn't anyone talking about that? I don't understand. I thought it was completely immoral. First of all, it's immoral, okay? It's grotesque, it's ridiculous, and it's illegal. It did make me see all the characters in a very different way, and I felt betrayed. Betrayed by the characters, betrayed by the author. And I felt betrayed just as Mika should have felt betrayed, in my opinion. There is one scene in particular with the children. Children are involved in that scene, and it felt really deeply insensitive and ridiculous and even morbid. And I'm sorry, but no matter how the story tries to justify it, it still comes across as wrong. It is morally wrong and it's illegal. I'm sorry. I don't want to say much more, not to spoil anything, but to me, this is bad. This is really bad. And so to me, the story is really inconsistent. It wants to make a funny event or something that is very insensitive, in my opinion. It wasn't funny for me. So it's weird because I understand why people like this book, because it is enjoyable. The cozy atmosphere is here. The characters, for the most part, are really nice, but the romantic connection, to me, it's not well done, and the ending was just bad. This book really left me disappointed and actually angry. So I rated this book 3 stars just because I loved it for the most part, but yeah, the ending, I don't understand. Alright, so now let's talk about a book by Ellie Hazelwood, and it is Love on the Brain. I have tried many Ellie Hazelwood books, and apart from The Love Hypothesis and Bride, which I enjoyed, the rest of them, not so much. Here we follow Bee Königswasser, and she's a fan of Marie Curie, and it's repeated over and over again. Anyway, NASA offers her her dream job, so obviously she accepts, but only to find out that she has to work with Levi, and it's her grad school nemesis. Bee is convinced that Levi hates her, but as the project unfolds, well, we're gonna discover the true feelings of Levi. I'm sorry, but in general, Ellie Hazelwood's characters are not my cup of tea, let's say. To me, Bee was insufferable, and Levi has zero personality. The guy is in love with Bee since, I think, 6 years without ever talking to her. Ever. So Bee is obviously very tiny, she's eccentric, she has those purple hair. She does feel like every other lead in Ellie Hazelwood's books. She goes off on endless tangents. She has grand theories for every single thing. She bursts into tears of their dead animal on the road, and it's like it's too much. She faints many times. I'm sorry, Ellie, but this is too much. Meanwhile, on the other hand, we have Levi, and he's just a grumpy, bland character. He's very passive compared to the chaotic Bee. The book's POV is its biggest weakness, in my opinion, because we are in the head of B all the time. It's mildly amusing for one chapter or two, but this becomes very exhausting by the end of the book. She's really over the top, and to me it was too much. The romance with B and Levi, yeah, I wasn't really interested. So I didn't really like this novel. To me it was just too much. So yeah, those are my thoughts on these books, on these very popular books. Definitely not the reaction I expected from these books, but of course this is just my own opinion. Have you read these books? Did you feel the same, or am I the only one? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your take. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone!